The board has made its decision, Lucas. Project Restoration is being terminated, effective immediately. CEO Marcus Davidson delivered the news with practiced corporate detachment, his voice echoing across the pristine conference room of Geotech Industries' Houston headquarters. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed an unforgiving Texas sun blazing over an oil refinery in the distance, a fitting backdrop for the end of my dreams. You're killing a technology that could revolutionize environmental cleanup because it might hurt your drilling contracts. I struggled to keep my voice steady, acutely aware of the 12 board members watching my reaction. We're an energy infrastructure company, not an environmental charity, Marcus replied, straightening his custom suit jacket. Your bioremediation system is scientifically interesting but financially untenable. The projected ROI simply doesn't justify further investment. My name is Dr. Lucas Chen, and until that moment, I had been Geotech's Director of Environmental Innovation, a position created specifically for me when they'd recruited me from MIT 3 years earlier with promises of unlimited resources to develop next-generation environmental restoration technologies. Now those promises were evaporating like morning dew under that merciless Texas sun. The Phase 3 field tests exceeded all expectations. I countered, gesturing to the data displayed on the wall screen. We've demonstrated 89% toxin reduction in contaminated soil within 6 weeks, 10 times faster than current methods at 1/5 the cost. The board appreciates your team's efforts, Davidson said, not bothering to look at the data. But we've decided to pivot toward more aligned business opportunities. Jackson's enhanced drilling fluid system offers immediate benefits to our core clients. Jackson Reynolds, my colleague, rival, and the CEO's nephew, sat across the table, struggling to suppress a smirk. His breakthrough was merely a marginal improvement on existing technology, a way to help oil companies extract resources more efficiently. Nothing revolutionary, nothing that would change the world, but something that would keep Geotech's primary clients happy and the profits flowing. And my team? I asked, thinking of the 12 brilliant scientists who had dedicated themselves to project restoration. Most will be reassigned to existing departments, Marcus replied, though some positions will unfortunately become redundant. Translation: layoffs were coming for those too loyal to me or too passionate about environmental remediation to fit neatly into Geotech's profit-focused paradigm. You have 2 weeks to document all research and transfer materials to Jackson's department, Marcus continued. He'll be overseeing the archiving and determining if any elements can be repurposed for client-facing applications. The final insult. Not only was my project being killed, but Jackson would now have complete access to our work, ready to strip mine it for any components that might enhance his drilling fluids or extraction technologies. I left the conference room without another word, walking past glass-walled laboratories where my team still worked, unaware that their innovations would never reach the polluted fields, contaminated waterways, and damaged ecosystems we had committed to healing. Dr. Sophia Lee, my deputy director, intercepted me in the corridor. One look at my face told her everything. They killed it, she stated rather than asked, her shoulders slumping slightly. Complete termination. 2 weeks to document and transfer everything to Jackson's team. She absorbed this with the composed dignity that had made her my most trusted colleague. Because our success might make their clients look bad. Because our success doesn't directly contribute to their clients' bottom lines, I corrected, though we both knew the truth was somewhere in between. Reynolds' drilling fluid got the green light, of course. We reached my office, a glass cube that had once symbolized the transparency and openness of scientific innovation, but now felt like a display case where my failure would be exhibited for all to see. What do we do now? Sophia asked after I closed the door. I stared out at the sprawling Geotech campus, remembering the day I had arrived, full of optimism about the corporate resources that would finally allow me to scale the bioremediation system I'd been developing since graduate school. I don't know, I admitted. They own everything we've developed here. The bacterial strains, the delivery system, the monitoring technology, all of it. Not everything, Sophia said quietly, lowering her voice though we were alone. The adaptive genomic modification protocol was derived from your pre-Geotech research, and the mobilization enzyme we've been testing for the past month isn't in the official documentation yet. She was right. My original research at MIT had focused on engineering bacterial strains that could adapt to different pollution profiles. Geotech had funded the expansion of that work. But the core intellectual property had origins outside the company, and our newest breakthrough, an enzyme that dramatically improved the mobility of our bacterial colonies through contaminated soil, wasn't yet integrated into the official project records. A dangerous idea began forming in my mind. Lucas, Sophia said, recognizing my expression. Whatever you're thinking, remember those ironclad contracts we signed. Geotech owns us. They own what they know about, I replied slowly, not what they don't. That evening, I called an emergency meeting at my apartment, not through company channels, but via personal contacts I trusted absolutely. 6 key members of Project Restoration gathered in my living room, their expressions ranging from anger to dejection to confused determination. Project Restoration has been terminated, I announced without preamble. Geotech has decided that cleaning up environmental disasters isn't as profitable as helping create them. The room erupted in outrage and dismay. These weren't corporate scientists who had joined Geotech for stock options and stability. These were environmental warriors who believed in the power of bioremediation to heal a wounded planet. When the initial shock subsided, I laid out the situation frankly. In 2 weeks, all our research will be transferred to Jackson Reynolds' department. Any useful components will be repurposed for extraction technologies. The rest will be buried in archives where it will never help a single contaminated ecosystem. Can they do that? Asked Dr. Reva Mehta, our soil chemistry expert. Just take years of revolutionary work and lock it away. Legally, yes, Sophia confirmed. Everything we've developed while employed by Geotech belongs to them. Not everything, I said, moving to my home workstation where I'd set up a secure connection to an external server. For the past year, I've been conducting parallel research based on my pre-Geotech work, using personal resources and time. Refinements to the adaptive genomic modification protocol that technically fall outside the company's intellectual property claims. I pulled up a genetic sequence that made Sophia lean forward in sudden interest. Is that what I think it is? She asked, studying the screen. A modified version of the mobilization enzyme we discovered last month, I confirmed, but with an additional feature that allows it to persist through extreme temperature variations. I've been testing it in my home lab. You have a home lab? Reva asked, sounding both impressed and worried. I converted my garage, I admitted. Nothing that violates my contract, just personal research that happens to align with my professional interests. I explained how the enhanced mobilization enzyme, combined with my original adaptive genomic modification protocol, created a bioremediation system that could function in environments ranging from Arctic cold to desert heat. It transformed Project Restoration from impressive to world-changing. What exactly are you suggesting, Lucas? Asked Dr. Diana Chen, no relation, our genomics specialist. I'm going to continue this work elsewhere, I said simply. Dr. Yai at the Environmental Restoration Institute has been following our published research. He's offered me a position heading their bioremediation division. But our contracts have non-compete clauses, Diana pointed out, which prevent us from taking Geotech's proprietary research to competitors, I acknowledged. I won't ask any of you to do that. What I'm proposing is that we properly document the official Project Restoration results that demonstrate the viability of bioremediation at scale, and ensure they become part of the scientific record before they can be buried. And after that? Sophia asked, though I could tell from her expression that she already knew. After that, each of you needs to make your own decision. Over the next week, we worked diligently to prepare Project Restoration for its official termination. To any observer, we appeared to be dutiful employees following the shutdown protocols. But we were meticulously documenting every successful test, every promising result, ensuring that the revolutionary potential of our system was unmistakably clear in the official record. Meanwhile, in my home lab, I refined the enhanced mobilization enzyme and adaptive genomic protocol, work that had never been part of Geotech's official research and thus remained mine. On day 8, Jackson Reynolds made his first appearance in our laboratory complex, clipboard in hand, surveying what would soon fall under his control. Lucas, he greeted me with artificial congeniality. I'm just doing a preliminary assessment of salvageable components from project restoration. No need to stop your documentation. Help yourself, I replied neutrally. Everything's being organized according to company protocols. He wandered through our lab space, occasionally making notes or taking photos with his tablet. Shame about the project. Interesting science, just not commercially viable in today's market realities. I bit back several responses, settling on diplomacy. Different measures of value, I suppose. That's the thing about you academic types, he said, his condescension barely concealed. Always focus on what could be instead of what is. The market doesn't reward idealism, Lucas. It rewards solutions to actual problems that people will pay to solve. Environmental devastation seems like an actual problem to me. Sure, but who's the customer? Who pays? Corporations only clean up when regulations force them to, and they want the cheapest band-aid solution that satisfies legal requirements. Your system is too thorough, too effective. Ironically, that makes it less marketable. His honesty was almost refreshing. Jackson wasn't evil. He simply accepted the profit-driven logic of the system we worked within, while I had foolishly believed I could change it from the inside. You know, he continued, lowering his voice conspiratorially, Uncle Marcus thinks you're naive, but I've always respected your scientific chops. Once the dust settles, I could use someone with your background on my enhanced extraction team. The offer's open, if you're interested. I appreciate that, I lied. I'll keep it in mind. After he left, Sophia approached my workstation. That was surprisingly civilized, she observed. He's offering me a lifeline, I explained, and checking whether I'll be a problem. Will you? I smiled for the first time since the project cancellation. Absolutely. On day 12 of our 2-week shutdown period, we made our move. At 9:00 a.m., I submitted a comprehensive research paper to Environmental Science and Technology, the field's most prestigious journal. The paper detailed project restoration's methodology and results with all 7 key team members as co-authors. Because Geotech had previously approved our research for public dissemination, a requirement I had insisted on in my original contract, the company had no legal grounds to block publication. At 9:05 a.m., I submitted my resignation letter, effective immediately. By 9:30 a.m., 5 other resignation letters had landed on Marcus Davidson's desk, including Sophia's. By 10:00 a.m., we had all cleared out our personal belongings and returned our company badges to a bewildered security team. The first call came as I was loading boxes into my car. Marcus Davidson himself, his corporate calm replaced by barely controlled fury. What the hell do you think you're doing, Chen? You can't just walk out in the middle of a project transition. I'm exercising my right to resign, as outlined in Section 7.3 of my employment contract. I replied calmly. All relevant research has been properly documented according to company protocols. Jackson should have no trouble completing the archiving process. This is about Reynolds getting the funding instead of you, isn't it? I expected more professionalism. This is about a company that recruited me to develop environmental restoration technology, then killed that technology when it threatened to make its clients look bad. I interrupted. My resignation letter makes that perfectly clear. Good luck with those enhanced drilling fluids, Marcus. I'm sure they'll be very profitable. I ended the call and drove away from Geotech Industries for the last time. In my rearview mirror, the sprawling campus grew smaller, its gleaming glass buildings reflecting a sky that we had hoped to help protect. 2 weeks later, I sat in Dr. Yi's modest office at the Environmental Restoration Institute discussing plans for our new bioremediation division. The concrete walls and utilitarian furniture were a far cry from Geotech's luxury, but the purpose in the air was palpable. The renovation of the West Wing laboratory should be completed next month, Dr. Yi was saying. Not as sophisticated as what you had at Geotech, but it's more than adequate, I assured him. What matters is the commitment to actually deploying these technologies, not just developing them for corporate shareholders. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Geotech Industries stock dropped 7% following publication of abandoned environmental technology. I showed it to Dr. Yi with a small smile. Your paper is making waves, he observed. The contrast between the technology's potential and Geotech's decision to abandon it is striking. especially since 3 major oil spills in the past month could benefit from precisely this kind of remediation, I added. The paper had been fast-tracked for publication, given its significance, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect, or worse, from geotech's perspective. Environmental groups were already calling out the company for shelving technology that could address exactly the kind of disasters currently in the headlines. My phone rang, Sophia calling from the temporary lab space we'd set up in a rented warehouse across town. "You need to see this," she said without preamble. "The enhanced mobilization enzyme combined with the adapted bacterial strain is showing 97% toxin reduction in heavily contaminated soil samples. The control mechanisms are holding perfectly. The bacteria self-terminate after remediation is complete." My heart raced. This was even better than our projections. "How's the temperature resilience testing going?" "From minus 10 degrees Celsius to 45 degrees Celsius with minimal efficiency loss." "Lucas, this isn't just an improvement. It's a revolution in environmental restoration." "Document everything meticulously," I instructed. "We'll need to file the provisional patents next week." After ending the call, I noticed Dr. Gay studying me with a thoughtful expression. "You had already developed the enhanced system before leaving Geotech, hadn't you?" he asked. "I had developed the theoretical framework and conducted preliminary tests," I acknowledged carefully, "based on my pre-Geotech research, nothing that violated my employment agreement." He nodded slowly. "Geotech will claim otherwise when they realize what you've created." "Let them. The paper trail is clear. The adaptive genomic modification protocol was based on my MIT work, and the enhanced mobilization enzyme was never documented in their systems." 3 months after leaving Geotech, our new company, Restoration Biosciences, was officially incorporated with seed funding from a coalition of environmental groups, private investors committed to sustainability, and a surprising source: 3 oil companies seeking to improve their environmental response capabilities in the wake of costly spills. Our first major contract came when the Environmental Protection Agency selected our technology for a demonstration project at a heavily contaminated brownfield site in Michigan that had resisted traditional cleanup methods for decades. I was overseeing the initial deployment when my phone rang with a number I recognized all too well: Jackson Reynolds. "Lucas," he began without preamble, "we need to talk about your bioremediation system." "What about it?" I asked, watching as our team prepared the bacterial delivery mechanism. "Geotech believes there may be some intellectual property overlap with Project Restoration. Marcus asked me to reach out before things get legal." I had been expecting this. "There's no overlap, Jackson. The core technology builds on my pre-Geotech research, as documented in my MIT publications. The enhancements were developed after I left the company." "Come on, Lucas," he said, his voice dropping into a more personal tone. "We both know you must have been working on this before you left. The timeline doesn't add up otherwise." "The timeline is precisely documented. Feel free to have your lawyers review our patents and development records." A long pause followed. "Look, instead of fighting about this, what if we discussed a partnership? Geotech has the infrastructure to deploy your system globally. We could make this a win-win." I thought about the boardroom where my dreams had been crushed, the refinery visible through the windows, the casual dismissal of technology that could heal damaged ecosystems. "Send me a formal proposal," I said finally. "But understand this. Any partnership would require complete commitment to deploying this technology wherever it's needed, not just where it's most profitable." "I'll see what I can do," he replied, though we both knew Marcus Davidson would never agree to such terms. A week later, as expected, Geotech's lawyers sent a cease and desist letter claiming intellectual property infringement. Our lawyers responded with comprehensive documentation of my research timeline, the distinct differences between Project Restoration and our new system, and evidence that the core technology predated my Geotech employment. The legal posturing continued for months, a background annoyance to our real work. Because while lawyers exchanged threatening letters, something remarkable was happening in Michigan. Dead soil was coming back to life. The EPA monitoring team was amazed by the transformation. Areas that had been toxic wastelands for generations were showing native plant growth just 4 months after treatment. Groundwater toxin levels had dropped by 94%. Wildlife was returning to areas that had been devoid of life for decades. News outlets picked up the story, featuring dramatic before and after images of the remediation site. Environmental groups highlighted the technology that geotech had abandoned, now demonstrating unprecedented success. The company's stock dropped another 5% as shareholders questioned the leadership's decision-making. 6 months into the Michigan project, I received another call, this time from Marcus Davidson himself. "Chen," he began, his voice lacking its usual confidence, "the board would like to discuss acquiring Restoration Biosciences." I couldn't help but laugh. "You want to buy the company you said would never be viable." "Market conditions have evolved," he replied stiffly. "Environmental remediation has become a strategic priority for many of our clients." Translation: oil companies were under increasing pressure to clean up their messes, and geotech wanted to control the most effective cleanup technology to maintain their business relationships. "We're not for sale, Marcus," I said firmly, "but as I told Jackson, we're open to discussing deployment partnerships, provided the technology is made available wherever it's needed, not just where it's most profitable." "That's not a sustainable business model," he objected. "It's the only model we'll consider. The technology exists to heal environmental damage, not to maximize shareholder returns." After he hung up, I joined Sophia and our team at the Michigan site. Standing amid new growth on what had been dead soil just months earlier, I felt vindication not in proving geotech wrong, but in proving the technology right. "They tried to buy us," I told Sophia as we walked the perimeter of the remediation zone. "Of course they did," she replied with a knowing smile. "They finally realized what we knew all along, that healing the environment isn't just the right thing to do. It's also going to be one of the biggest industries of the next century." 1 year after leaving geotech, Restoration Biosciences had grown to a team of 50 scientists and engineers, with demonstration projects on 3 continents. Our technology had been deployed at oil spill sites, abandoned industrial complexes, and contaminated agricultural lands, each success building momentum for a new approach to environmental restoration. Geotech, meanwhile, had undergone a shakeup. Marcus Davidson had been replaced as CEO after a shareholder revolt triggered by declining stock value and a series of investigative articles questioning the company's decision to abandon Project Restoration despite its proven success. Jackson Reynolds had kept his position but was no longer overseeing enhanced drilling technology. Instead, he had been reassigned to develop geotech's belated entry into the environmental remediation market, always a step behind our innovations, always playing catch-up to the technology they could have owned if they'd been willing to see beyond the next quarter's profits. On the anniversary of Project Restoration's cancellation, I received an unexpected visitor at our headquarters, now a renovated former industrial space with state-of-the-art laboratories and a living roof covered in native plants. Dr. Yi showed a nervous young woman into my office. "Lucas, this is Ella Davidson. She asked to speak with you specifically." Marcus Davidson's daughter. I recognized her from company events, though we'd never spoken directly. She was in her early 20s, recently graduated from Stanford with a degree in environmental science, according to my quick mental review. "Dr. Chen," she began, clearly uncomfortable. "Thank you for seeing me. I know this must seem strange given everything." "Not at all," I replied, gesturing for her to sit. "What can I do for you?" "I want to work for Restoration Biosciences," she said directly. "I followed your Michigan project and the work you're doing in Bangladesh. It's exactly the kind of environmental restoration I studied at Stanford." I blinked in surprise. "Your father might have some objections." "My father and I have different views on corporate responsibility," she said with a hint of steel that reminded me of Marcus. "I believe companies should be part of environmental solutions, not contributors to the problem. And I'd rather work for the innovators than the imitators." I studied her for a moment, seeing sincerity in her expression. "We hire based on merit, not family connections, positive or negative. Your last name won't help or hurt you here." "That's all I asked," she replied with evident relief. "A chance to be judged on my own work, not my father's decisions." Later that evening, as I reviewed application materials from promising scientists eager to join our team, including Ella Davidson's impressive research on wetland restoration, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. Geotech had believed that environmental remediation wasn't profitable enough to pursue. They had calculated value solely in terms of quarterly returns and shareholder dividends. But they had failed to see the biggest market opportunity of all: healing a planet in crisis. Our success wasn't just a personal vindication or a business triumph. It was proof that doing the right thing could also be the smart thing, that innovation focused on environmental healing could succeed where profit-focused extraction had begun to fail. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Asterisk just got confirmation. The UN Environmental Program wants to deploy our system at 50 critical sites worldwide. This is really happening, asterisk. I smiled, thinking of that conference room at Geotech where they had killed Project Restoration, of Jackson's condescending offer, of Marcus Davidson's certainty that environmental remediation wasn't commercially viable. Sometimes the most powerful response to rejection isn't anger or resentment. It's proving through undeniable success that they were catastrophically wrong. Not just for personal satisfaction, but because the work itself matters too much to abandon. Outside my window, the sun set over our testing fields, where once contaminated soil now supported a riot of native plants. In the distance, I could see the lights of the city where Geotech's headquarters still dominated the skyline, a monument to old thinking and short-term gains. But the future belonged to those who understood that true innovation meant healing rather than exploiting, restoring rather than extracting. And that future was already taking root, one remediated ecosystem at a time.